Hello, and welcome. How's it going? Matilda B here. And today we're talking about the bigger picture, right? The 10,000 foot view, right? How do you use that 10,000 foot view to help you bring joy to motherhood? How do you use the 10,000 foot view to understand the way your time is working? How do you use that 10,000 foot view to allocate time, right? How do you use that 10,000 foot view to manage your time? So, what does this 10,000 foot view mean? If you've ever heard the saying, you can't see the forest for the trees, right? It means that when you're standing right in front of a tree in a forest, you can't see everything else around the forest. You can't see everything else that's going on because, like, this big tree is right in front of you and it's blocking your view of everything else, right? But if you take a couple hundred steps back, or if you get an aerial view of what's going on, right? If you are 10,000 feet in the air and you look down on the forest, you can see everything else that's going on. You have a bigger picture of what's going on, right? If you're right in front of one tree, it feels like there's only one tree, right? But at 10,000 feet, you can actually see maybe the whole size, like the size of this whole forest, right? Or you can see just how far this forest extends. Does that make sense? So, so that's the whole bigger picture thing, right? And so today we're going to look at big picture. What are the things that fall on a mom's plate, right? And how you can, and how, when you know the bigger picture and these things, right, these areas that moms are responsible for, then you can plan your time better, you can plan your life better, and you can understand how to utilize these areas of your life and your time to get the best out of every moment. Does that make sense? So that's what we're diving into today, right? So 4 areas that often fall on a mom's plate. And I'm going to start with the most neglected but most important, and that is your personal bucket, right? I'm going to call them buckets, right? So your personal bucket, right? This is where these are things that pertain to you, right? Like what are the things that you do for yourself, right? To get you in that space where you are able to able to show up for everyone else, right? What are those things that you need in this bucket, right? And you need to fill this bucket, right? This is the most important bucket in a mom's life. You need to fill this bucket, right? Now, the second area is relationships, right? Because you're a mom, you have kids, right? Maybe you have a partner or a husband or a spouse, like whatever you call your partner, right? But there are people in your life, and you have these relationships that you want to foster. So what in this bucket is all the things that you do for others, like they're focused on other people, right? So what are the things that you do in this bucket, right? What are the things that help you build the relationships, build the friendships, build the like the family relationship, like build the relationship with your kids, with your partner, with your friends, with your extended family? All those things fall in that bucket, right? And it's a very important bucket because we are made to live with people, right? Like, yeah, we're made to live in community, to live in society, right? Like, we're communal people, we're communal beings. We need other people around us. So you want to cultivate those relationships, and there are things that you will do that fall in this bucket that help you cultivate those relationships, right? The third bucket is home management, right? Now, when I say home management, what I mean is the day-to-day tasks, the active tasks that you do to keep your home running, right? So it's like the cooking, the cleaning, the laundry, the basic things that have to happen to keep your home in motion. If you can hear me, if you can hear my dryer, it's going right now because laundry needs to get done, right? So these are things that you need to do to keep your home running. And then the fourth bucket is home administration, right? Now, when I say home admin, I mean like mental tasks, irregular things, seasonal things, things that don't happen, like they're not day to day. They probably don't pop into your calendar on a weekly basis, right? It's more things that will pop on your calendar like once a month, not even once a month, more like maybe once every 2 months, once every 6 months, once a year, annual things, right? Seasonal things. When you're switching, it's fall, so you're switching from what season comes before fall? Like, hold on a second. Switching from summer to fall. There we go, right? So it's things like that, right? You only do that once a year, right? So what are those things that fall into that bucket of home administration for you, right? So when you look at your day and you understand that, okay, everything that's going on in my day is probably falling into one of these buckets, right? I'm not counting work if you work outside the home. If you're a stay-at-home mom who's switching to a work-from-home mom, when you're in that transition, work often falls in your personal bucket, right? Because, and this was me, right? Maybe it's not you, but it was me. When I worked outside the home, it was very clear when my work hours were, right? Because I'm not at home, right? I get in the car, I go to work, and once I'm at work, right? And it's clear these are my work hours. Nobody at home can disrespect my work hours because I'm not there. Does that make sense? But then after working outside the home, I became a full-time stay-at-home mom, right? And all I did was focus on the home, right? And then when I transitioned from being a stay-at-home mom into being a work-from-home mom, I had to start creating that time, which before then was occupied by all these other things, right? So it feels like you're stealing time from your home, which is not the case, right? So if you feel like that, I do have two resources for you. One is a guide. It's just something that you can read through really quickly, and it'll give you 10 ways to start creating pockets of time. If you need to dive a little deeper, I have a workshop for you. So if you feel like that, then I do have those resources for you, right? But when I started switching from being a full-time stay-at-home mom to being a work-from-home mom, and I had to start creating those pockets, I felt guilty, right? And my family had to understand that they needed to start respecting the time and the space that I'd set aside for my work. Does that make sense? So when you start this transition, your work life will fall in your personal bucket and you still have the four buckets. Um, but as you grow and you cultivate it, you can then add that fifth bucket, which is your work bucket. And then your work bucket and your personal bucket become different. Does that make sense? But if you just at the very beginning stages, you just have those four buckets: personal, relationships, home management, and home administration, right? Now, these things bleed into each other, right? Like when you think about home management and home administration, sometimes you can be like, well, does serving breakfast fall under relationships or home management? Like, like it's a daily task that I do to keep the home running, but it's also a daily task that I do to build the relationship with my people, right? So where does it fall, right? Sometimes it feels like these tasks bleed into each other, and that's okay, because overall, when you look bigger picture, what are you doing? Bigger picture, you're moving your family to a place where you're launching your kids out into the world and you want them to be successful, and everything that you do from the time they're born till the time they move out is equipping them to be successful adults, right? What will it look like? It will look like doing their laundry when they can't. It will look like teaching them to do their laundry. It will look like teaching them how to actually plan out their days and their weeks to fit in all the things they need to do. Does that make sense? So as you progress through life, these things may feel like they bleed into each other, but once you know bigger picture, these are the buckets that I'm working with, you start to understand and you start to give yourself grace in the activities that you do on a daily basis. You start to look at your calendar and give yourself grace. You start to look at your calendar and see where things are not harmonious. You start to see the irregularities. You start to see where you're feeling the push and pull, right? When it feels like your roles and your responsibilities are playing tug of war and you're in the middle. Does that make sense? So seeing the bigger picture helps you start understanding what this looks like. Now, think of it this way. If you have a chair and it has four legs, right? You got a chair, it's got four legs. What is the most comfortable length for you to sit in that chair? It's when all the legs are the same size, right? If you have one chair that's like, if you have one leg that's like really, really short, and then you have like a medium short leg, and you have like a long leg, and then you have a super long leg, right? And you try and sit in that chair, that is not comfortable. Like, I wouldn't sit in that chair because I am so scared of falling from a chair. Like, I am. It's like crazy fear, crazy, I don't know. But anyway, I wouldn't sit in that chair because I'm like, I can immediately see that the legs are not the same size. And so that's not going to work, right? Now, when it comes to your buckets, right, you want to give each bucket what it needs so that it's full, right? Now, while the chair analogy is good because it helps you understand the harmony between the buckets, I also don't want you to think that you have to give each bucket the same amount of time. You don't want to give the buckets the same amount of time because they don't need the same amount of time. Does that make sense? So here's the analogy that I want you to take with you to add on to the chair one, right? I always tell my daughters, fair is not always equal. And what do I mean by that? Now, the picture that I always have in my mind when I say this, and this is what I share with them, is that think about a wall, a brick wall. And on the other side of the brick wall, there's something fun going on. So maybe a concert, maybe a ball game or whatever. And there's this brick wall that you're trying to see through, right? I think Pumpkin's coming down the stairs. So I may have to end this really quickly. Okay, so you think of the brick wall and you have four people, right? So, and they're all at different heights, right? For all of you to see over the wall, you have the super tall person who can see over the wall just by standing on the ground, right? And then you have differing heights from then on. So think Pumpkin, Snowflake, me, and my husband, right? He can see over the wall. I can't see over the wall. The kids can't see over the wall. Fair, equal would be all of us standing on the ground and trying to look over the wall. And if we do that, he's the only one who can see over the wall. Fair is giving each of us enough boxes so that we can all see over the wall. Pumpkin would need 3, Snowflake would need 2, I would need 1, and then we can all see over the wall. So it's not equal because we don't all have the same number of boxes, but it's fair because the point is that we all want to see over the wall. Does that make sense? Now, when it comes to your 4 buckets in your home, fair is giving each bucket what it needs for that bucket to be filled, right? It might be understanding that in your home management box, in your home management bucket, you can actually delegate a lot of those things and have somebody else do them so that you're not giving your time, effort, and energy into that bucket, but that bucket is still filled. So because all you're doing is delegating, you're actually giving home management 10 minutes instead of 2 hours. But that bucket is filled because that's all it needed from you. But your personal bucket needs 2 hours from you because you need to do a workout. You need to have some self-care. You need to go and get your nails done, whatever it is that makes you happy. You need to read a book. So that one might need more, right? Your relationship bucket might need a bit more depending on the stage of life you're in. If you have toddlers and they're in a high table, it takes much more from you than if you have teenagers and they can drive themselves to school. Does that make sense? So each bucket will not get the same amount of time. But bigger picture, you start to see that, yes, I want to fill all these buckets. There's harmony between these buckets, and fair is not always equal, but you do want to distribute fairly so that the legs of your chair are even. Make sense? So that's the thing with big picture thinking, right? And how you can use that to start managing your time. So that's what I had to share with you today. Mark your calendars for October 14th. We have a masterclass that's going to be talking about how to run your day like a boss, right? How to find that harmony between momming, which is what we're all about. It's finding that harmony between momming and your dreams, right? So how do you run your day-to-day basis so that you get all the things done on both sides, right? So what else did I have for you? Oh, nope, that's it from me for today. Have a good one.